has the feeling there's panic in the palace, rudderless leadership. Everything is causing huge damage to the royal family and to Britain, and it was all predictable months, if not years ago, ever since the Newsnight interview, which of course shouldn't have happened. And the palace has just let it trundle on until the Daily Mail on Sunday released the emails and all the rest. And there's so much more terrible, incriminating stuff to come. And where's it all going to end? The king needs to take a firm hand. He's ill. He hasn't got good advisors. Our minister has done nothing. The great and the good, the wise men, the establishment of Britain is allowing the monarchy just to drift into an unbelievable quagmire.
His life is being eroded because of his past behavior.
Well, hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you are new around here, welcome. My name is Jennifer, and if you are returning, thanks for coming back. So it seems like we have to talk about this. I have not made a dedicated video on Prince Andrew on this channel, and I haven't done that for several reasons. The first reason is just, honestly, I've just always found him really grotesquely arrogant and, like Andrew Lowry's book calls him, entitled. And I've just always felt that he was just too gross. It was too lurid and dark a subject matter. All of his associations with Jeffrey Epstein, all of the accusations against him over the years, it was just an unsavory topic that I didn't really feel like I wanted to delve into on this channel. I mean, let's be real here. Talking about Harry and Meghan and all of the shenanigans and dark things and forces that are surrounding those two, talking about them is more than enough. But it's gotten to the point now where all of the headlines, all the stories are coming out so fast and so furious about this man, this entitled, arrogant, spoiled, self-centered man. The stories are so loud now that they're absolutely deafening. So I thought that I would just go through the timeline a little bit to give us some perspective as to the last 20, 25 years or so. How did we end up to this place that we're at now with him? And in this video, I will be referring to him as Prince Andrew because at the time of this filming, he still does retain that title by birthright, just by virtue of being the son of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth. There are a lot of us out there who don't even like the fact that he still holds the title of Prince. And I gotta tell you, as more and more and more comes out, I am definitely one of them. As we all know, on October 17th, 2025, he officially, in a statement, came out and said that he will no longer use his Duke of York title. That title is now officially in abeyance. But I think for myself and so many out there, that is not going far enough. And we will explore all of that. And so many of us are becoming more and more disillusioned with people of high influence, people in high positions. You know, it's all just becoming an epidemic. It's like a cancer in the culture. Something is very, very wrong. And Andrew is just, I think, a little bit of a tip of the iceberg as to everything that is wrong in our culture. So I just wanted to go through the timeline with Prince Andrew because, again, there's so much out there in the news right now. And I got this timeline from an article from The Guardian online. And if you know anything about The Guardian, they are notoriously an anti-royal family publication, which is probably why I think that the timeline is so good and so scathing and really gives us a glimpse into how long this man has been up to these types of shenanigans, how long he has been engaging in morally reprehensible behavior and been allowed to get away with it and been allowed to feel as if this is just something that he is entitled to do. He's just, you know, Prince Andrew, and he should be allowed to carry on in whatever manner he feels that he wants to carry on in. And no one should have a say or question him about any of it. This man is and remains unrepentant. He has admitted to zero wrongdoing. Even in his latest statement from October 17th, where he said that he will no longer use his titles, he still remains staunchly in defense of himself. And that's where I think so much of the public outcry, criticism, and just straight up anger is coming from. In light of everything that we know, in light of how we know that this man has lied and lied repeatedly. that he still remains defiant. So the timeline begins in this article, and I will go ahead and link it in the description because I really feel that it's a great one to just kind of get in there and dig and see where it kind of started and where we're at. I'm going to start in 1999. And in 1999, supposedly, according to him, he was introduced to Jeffrey Epstein. Then in the spring of 2001 is where alleged accuser of Prince Andrew, Virginia Giuffre, says that all 3 incidents of sexual abuse occurred, and she was then a 17-year-old minor during all 3 incidences in the spring of 2001. Incident number 3 was allegedly on the private island of Jeffrey Epstein in the Caribbean. Now, fast forward almost 10 years to December 2010, and that is when we all got the infamous photo of Prince Andrew strolling with Jeffrey Epstein in New York Central Park. Now, mind you, this famous photograph was taken after Jeffrey had already been accused of sex trafficking minors, and he had been released from prison. So at that time, he was pictured walking, strolling, chatting with Jeffrey. And that raised a ton of eyebrows because everyone was wondering, what the heck is Prince Andrew doing strolling and chatting away in Central Park with a convicted pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein? Because remember, at that time that photograph was taken, Jeffrey Epstein had been released from prison and he had pleaded guilty for prostituting minors. That is what he was charged with, and that was what he was imprisoned for. So this is after he was released from prison. Great judgment on the part of Prince Andrew. But that, again, I believe speaks to how defiant and belligerent and arrogant that man is. He was advised to not be seen with or associate with that man, but he figures he knows better. So that's when that picture was taken. I forgot to mention in May 2010, that was when Fergie was accused of the pay for play when she was selling access to her ex-husband, Prince Andrew. So that was also in 2010. So Andrew and Fergie are up to no good all the way back in 2010. Then the article goes on. It says in April 2015, allegations that Andrew had sex with Virginia Giuffre emerged in court documents coming out of Florida. And she claims at the time she was forced to have sex with him. And 17 is under the age of consent in Florida. Buckingham Palace at the time was denying all of this. In my opinion, covering up for Andrew and his shenanigans. Then in August 2019, Jeffrey Epstein is found dead in his cell of apparent suicide, okay? And in that same year, a few months later, November 2019, is when Andrew, in all of his fat-headed arrogance, goes on that infamous BBC interview where he talks about how he has absolutely no recollection of ever meeting Virginia Giuffre. He just enthralled us with his mysterious medical condition about how he's not able to sweat, because one of the things alleged in court documents was that, Virginia was saying he was sweating all over her, and like she remembers all that, and she's recounting all these just lurid, disgusting details of her encounters with him. And he figures that that's a way that he can kind of counter that narrative, to put forth the fact that he is medically, physically unable to sweat. And that whole interview, you're watching it and you're thinking, he is so deceptive. I mean, there's so many body language experts here on YouTube that have dissected the minutia of that interview, and you should definitely go watch them. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that this man is not forthcoming. And it's really interesting because he goes on and on and on and on, and he offers these details that really make him look even worse. And that's when he gives that famous Pizza Express excuse about how he couldn't have been anywhere near her when she said at that time because he was at Pizza Express. I mean, it's been known that liars do that to make themselves more convincing. They throw in a bunch of these just unrelated, nonsensical details to throw people off and make it seem like, well, how could he be lying? Because he's offering up so much information, but what they do offer up sounds really weird or odd, or is either here nor there. He seemed just very uncomfortable, very arrogant in the way that he would answer the questions, almost as if it was an imposition to have to answer these allegations against him. So that interview did absolutely nothing for his reputation. And allegedly, he even went against advice of his staff and decided to do that interview when everyone was telling him, don't do this. It's not going to be a good look. And so many people that know Andrew intimately, whether they're family members or staff, it's come out that he is unbelievably arrogant, does not take direction or instruction nicely or kindly from anyone, no matter how well-intentioned. But you know what? In my personal opinion, I couldn't be happier that he agreed to do the interview. I couldn't be happier that he went against the advice of his staff. And I couldn't be happier that he went on television on the BBC as the bumbling, arrogant buffoon that he is and dug himself deeper and deeper and deeper into the hole into which he finds himself now. I mean, the hole that he dug himself in then was pretty bad. We're going to get to everything that's going on now, but this made it 10 times worse and really, really set the ball rolling against Andrew. Because after that November 2019 interview, on the 12th of January 2022, a New York judge rejected Prince Andrew's attempts to get a civil abuse case brought on by Virginia thrown out. Prince Andrew was trying to get the civil case that Virginia Giuffre was bringing up against him thrown out, and it was unsuccessful. And we probably know why the judge did not want to throw out the case and disagreed and said no, because there was probably a mountain of evidence there that implicated him and this woman, Virginia. So the judge was like, no, thank you. I'm not going to allow you to dismiss this case. So then what happens one day after that judge refused to throw out Virginia's civil sex abuse case allegations against Prince Andrew? The Queen then strips him of his HRH, his honorary, his Royal Highness title, and of all his patronages and all of his beloved military titles. And that must have been very, very hard for her to do, because we all know by all accounts that Andrew was Queen Elizabeth II's favorite son. So then on the 26th of January 2022, Prince Andrew and his lawyers are insisting to a New York court that, he wants his day in court. He wants a jury trial. He's determined that he's going to clear his name and, I guess, what he believes offer evidence to support his claims that he was not involved. He has no recollection of this woman. The allegations are false, all of that. But at the same time, his lawyers are asserting that because of the 2009 court case that Virginia Giuffre had brought up against Jeffrey Epstein, because that was settled, that somehow shielded Andrew from any further litigation and any further involvement. And they had tried to argue that before, but it was unsuccessful. Then in very early February 2022, on February 5th, there's a date set for Andrew to give evidence under oath. But just 10 days later is when he came into that financial agreement, that financial settlement with Virginia Giuffre for what many in the media are reporting upwards of £12 million. And that's what got everyone's head scratching, because they were thinking, why is this man who has just been staunchly defending himself, saying that he doesn't know who this woman is, he is innocent of all these allegations, why then, just 10 days after he was supposed to appear to give evidence under oath, is he now giving financial compensation in the form of a settlement with this woman? And not only that, but according to reports, he made a substantial charitable donation to Virginia's charities. And he also put out a statement basically saying that he acknowledged that she had been an abuse victim for a very long period of time, although he's still, in the careful wording and statements released around that time, still denying it, but yet he's settling. And by all accounts, I remember everything in the news around that time, people saying that he was forced to do this, that he felt compelled and forced to do that, because this was a few months before the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. And it was a very, very big deal for the Queen. It was a very, very big deal for the nation to have a Jubilee celebration. And it was alleged that Buckingham Palace and so many around him were like, make this problem go away. Throw some money at it so that you do not mar your mother's Jubilee celebration. So that's, I think, the narrative that he likes out there. That's the narrative that he wants out there, that, he's such a good, honorable man that even though he is completely innocent of all these allegations, that he felt that it was his duty to not ruin his mother's Jubilee celebration and rather just settle it and take the heat. And that's what I really feel that was that narrative that he was trying to push out at the time. In early January 2024, there's even more court documents coming out describing Andrew's association with Virginia. further allegations, all this unsavory, gross stuff. The problem is not going away, okay? But what was really sad was at the time, Scotland Yard was saying they're not going to open up a new investigation. They're not going to do anything because according to them, nothing new to see here. This was all stuff that everyone had known before. So nothing really came of it other than just resurfacing of all of these unsavory allegations regarding Andrew and Virginia Dufresne. But then what really started to hype up everything was the release this past August of Andrew Lowry's book called Entitled. And I believe that that book was so important because it was instrumental in ripping the Band-Aid off of this disgusting festering wound on the British royal family that is Prince Andrew. And Lowry did extensive work on this book. I've watched so many interviews with him on YouTube. He has said that he reached out to thousands of individuals, but only about 300 agreed to speak with him regarding the allegations and everything surrounding Prince Andrew. And he interviewed a lot of people that knew Andrew from the very beginning all the way up to where we find, ourselves with him now. A lot of them were fearful of personal, public, legal retaliation. You're trying to talk about a very, very high profile person and someone who is in the top of the elite. I'm sure there are people that were very frightened to speak about Andrew, to talk about the truth of what they knew about Andrew. But by all accounts, the book is very factual. It is well researched and fact checked. And Andrew has not sued Andrew Lowry over the book Entitled. And what does that tell you? So now fast forward to where we find ourselves now. Leaked emails from 2011 surface from Prince Andrew to Jeffrey Epstein after that infamous photo that was taken in London showing Prince Andrew with his arm around a minor 17-year-old Virginia Dufresne after the release of that photo. And it was Andrew in the email basically saying to Jeffrey that, don't worry, we are in this together and we're going to play soon. And aside from just being gross, the significance of that email was that it showed that Prince Andrew lied in that infamous November 2019 BBC interview where he said that he cut all ties with Epstein in 2010. He didn't cut ties with him in 2010 because here we have proof that in 2011, he's basically still pledging his allegiance and friendship to Jeffrey, saying, don't worry, we're going to play soon and we have to stand by each other. We're in this together. In what together, Andrew? Can you please expand on that point? What are you in together? Because you're writing to someone who is a convicted pedophile and sex trafficker. That's what Jeffrey Epstein is in. So what are you in with him together? The language is very, very telling, and it speaks of an intimacy there that was still ongoing. He's a liar. He is now a proven liar. So because of that leaked email, and I believe that there are more and more to come, this is not going to get any better. Where do we find ourselves? We find ourselves with a royal communication statement from Prince Andrew. I have it pulled up here and I'm going to read it to you. And I just have to tell you that when I read this, I was so completely disgusted. And I must say, very, very disappointed in King Charles to allow this statement to be released as it was, worded as it was. So let's just read it and I will tell you why. So this is the royal communication statement that came out on Friday, the 17th of October, 2025. And it reads, a statement by Prince Andrew. In discussion with the king and my immediate and wider family, we have concluded the continued accusations about me distract from the work of His Majesty and the royal family. I have decided, as I always have, to put my duty to my family and country first. I stand by my decision 5 years ago to stand back from public life. With His Majesty's agreement, we feel I must now go a step further. I will therefore no longer use my title or the honors which have been conferred upon me. As I have said previously, I vigorously deny the accusations against me. Ends. Okay, this is just so stinking rotten on so many stinking levels. And I know I'm not the only one that just becomes enraged reading this. Just enraged. Because, first of all, the way that it's worded makes it seem like it was just, Andrew and the king coming together, this great meeting of the minds. They've both made this decision together. And it's like, no. No, 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 no. Just the fact that they allowed Prince Andrew to release this statement as a statement by Prince Andrew, that's the number one thing wrong here. It should have been a statement from the king himself, from King Charles himself saying, this is what we're going to do with my disgraced brother, Prince Andrew. He was allowed, meaning Prince Andrew, he was allowed to somehow save and cover for himself and explain himself. And, this is his statement in conjunction with the king. That is giving him way too much credit. And that's giving him, frankly, the respect that he does not deserve, in my opinion. So I didn't like the wording. I didn't like anything here. I didn't like how it started out with in discussion. It's not a discussion because at this point, everything that he had been involved in, all the lies that he's told, the way that he has embarrassed and disgraced himself in interviews, in his associations with a convicted pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein, that ought to be enough to just have it be out of the gate a statement from the king saying, this is what we're doing with Andrew. This is not even a discussion with Andrew anymore. This is what's being done about him. So that's what I didn't like. So I didn't like this whole in discussion thing, meaning that, he's part of the round table here deciding his fate. No, 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 no. Just from his actions, his despicable and morally reprehensible actions, he needs to be left out of the conversation and just step back and just, okay, deal with me. But he doesn't even have the moral compass and the shame and just the frankly emotional intelligence to allow that to happen. But I digress. And so whatever. So yeah, so he's in discussion with the king and the family, and this is what they've all, determined is the best course of action. And the continued accusations distract. Well, they do more than distract, Andrew. They bring about disgrace. Another D word. I think you're looking for another D word. And the word you're looking for is disgrace, okay? It's not a distraction, it's a disgrace at this point, okay? I have decided, comma, as I always have, comma, to put my duty to my family and country first, period. Okay? That sentence in of itself is even more enraging. So he's decided, as he always has, to put his country and his duty to his country first. Really? Really now? Everything that you've done in the past to disgrace yourself and your family's good name, that's you putting your country and your duty to your family and your country first? What? Come again? I mean, talk about being divorced from reality. Talk about having such a sense of arrogance and entitlement when faced with the most disgusting allegations, and it's coming out more and more and more that you lied, that you have not been forthcoming, that he's still hesitant to actually admit any kind of regret, real regret and shame. There's no evidence of that here. It's still so profoundly arrogant. I just cannot, I can't. And then he says, I stand by my decision 5 years ago to stand back from public life, as if to remind us that, he's already made this huge sacrifice. He's already taken a permanent step back from being a senior working royal. In a way, it's almost to remind us that mommy punished me, took everything away from me already. Poor me. What more do you want from me? It's like, give me a freaking break. And then it says, with His Majesty's agreement, we feel I must now go a step further. Now, what does that sentence tell you? That sentence tells you that he's trying to paint it as if he went to the king and said, I'm going to do this. And the king was like, yeah, awesome. Perfect. I'm in total agreement. Good on you, Andrew. Good on you for being such a great guy to go ahead and voluntarily not use your dukedom title in public anymore. You are such a gem. It's like, really? With His Majesty's agreement. That's why this whole thing, this whole statement coming from the vantage point of Andrew writing it, that's why it's missing the mark so badly. should be, this is what Charles, the king, is doing about him. But even the way that Charles is allowing him to word this statement is just terrible. So with His Majesty's agreement, right? So it's Andrew's idea. I will therefore no longer use my title or the honors which have been conferred upon me. Conferred. He was so deserving of all those honors, and they were conferred upon him. But he's such the bigger man that even though all this has been put upon him, taking no accountability for anything that got him into this pickle in the first place. And, this is such an injustice. I mean, this whole thing drips with just, he's so feeling sorry for himself. Everything is just, this is so put upon. He's so put upon. As I have said previously, I vigorously deny the accusations against me. Come on. This is where we're at now. This to me shows such weak leadership on the part of the king. And it's really sad because the king really had such an opportunity. He could have really, really shown strength. And he also should have sided with the victims. He should have come out in full support of victims of this type of abuse. It would have sent such a strong message because in my humble opinion, Andrew was not deserving to have any part in this statement. The fact that he was able to release this statement and word this statement the way that he did, as if it was all coming out of his good grace, and his just resigning himself to the fact that he's just a falsely accused man who has to make these tough decisions in order to not distract from the work of his family. It's just, it boggles the mind. So yeah, now we're at the point where what? People are saying that not using the title of a duke and these other honors that were conferred upon you in public, that's not going far enough. That these titles, like the dukedom, need to be stripped. Putting them in abeyance isn't going to satisfy anybody right now. These titles need to be stripped. And apparently, according to everything I've been reading, and I could be wrong because I'm telling you, so many people say so many different things. But from what I'm reading, it's not just a letters patent. It also has to be an act of parliament. And the reason why it is so hard to do, apparently, is because there are legal implications to it. It's like a legal title, not just something that was bestowed upon him. The Queen gave Andrew the title of the Duke of York upon his marriage to Sarah Ferguson. It was a title that she gifted him, yes, but there's also legalities, legal implications to him holding that title. And apparently that's why it also involves an act of parliament to have it stripped. And there's also the Titles Deprivation Act of 1917, which was put forth during World War I to strip British royal titles from people that were siding with the enemy, which was then Germany during World War I. But if you were to apply that now, from my understanding, there is no precedent for that. Like new amendments or even a new law would have to be drawn up in this case to have it pertain to be able to strip Andrew from his dukedom. And again, there's no real precedent for it to be applied in this modern context. It was like a very singular and special way that Deprivation Act of 1917 was applied back then. And that's why if they were to start to kind of maybe push something forward into Parliament now, or to put pressure on Parliament to amend or make a new law in order to strip Andrew, that it would kind of open up this can of worms that I don't necessarily think that the British royal family wants opened, because that could set a dangerous precedent. Maybe they're afraid that it could be abused in the future to take away titles from people who, by all accounts, are still deserving of those titles. It's really, really sticky because you're getting into very, very dicey territory here. Because what has happened is that Prince Andrew has shown himself to be a particularly despicable man. He's shown himself to be a liar. He showed himself to have associations with people that are very unsavory, like Jeffrey Epstein, that were involved in the sex trafficking of minors. We all know that he did have associations with this man, although he vigorously denies the allegations that Virginia Dufresne has against him. He's still tainted by these associations. And so many of us are saying more and more is going to start coming out as more and more of the Epstein files are released in the States. it's going to trickle and drip over to the UK, and there is just going to be more and more mounting evidence against this man. And the public is enraged. The public is enraged because just reading that statement, just watching his interviews, everything that this man has done, he is not repentant. He is still digging in his heels and denying all wrongdoing. That is the real clincher here. That is what is making people so unbelievably upset. He is 100% going to continue to dig his heels in, and he is not going to give in. Okay, so in addition to the public outcry regarding all of these alleged abuse allegations surrounding Andrew and all the cries for the titles to be stripped, people are really starting to take a closer and closer look at his financials, and that includes whether or not he's paying rent where he's currently living. He's living in Royal Lodge, which is a 30-room, I don't know, some call it a mansion, some call it a palace within the confines of Windsor Park. And he entered into a 2003 lease agreement with the Crown Estate. That's why he lives there. And at the time that he entered into this agreement, he was required to pay £7.5 million. And this was to refurbish the place. Plus, at that time, he also paid $1 million to lease the property for 75 years. And this is all detailed in a 2005 report by the National Audit Office in the UK. And this is basically an official public spending watchdog organization. So he signs this lease in 2003. And because he paid to refurbish it, and because he paid that $1 million to continue to live there for 75 years, he's essentially, if you want to get technical, paying no rent because he paid that up front, that $1 million. In the terms of this lease, there's something called a peppercorn rent, and it's a historical kind of symbolic phrase that is used in formal lease agreements. And it's basically stating that for this historical adage that he must pay rent of 1 peppercorn per annum, which means annually, and it's a Latin term. And it's basically, it's like an agreement that really doesn't mean anything, but you have to just put it down on paper to, I guess, make the lease agreement official. But in reality, he's paid that $1 million. He pays no rent going forward, and he has a legal contract entitling him to live there. The problem is that if he starts really feeling the pressure from the British people and, political pressure to leave, per the term of that agreement that he entered into with the Crown Estate, it's very interesting because the estate would have to pay him compensation to move out. And the reason that is because per this agreement, if he were ever forced to leave during the first 25 years of his contract, he would have to be compensated for each year that he would be prevented from living there. So because the agreement was signed in 2003, that brings us to 2028 as that stands today. So if he was forced from that lease, he would be receiving compensation upwards of £558,000. And that's about 2 years worth, a little over 2 years worth, because, 2025 is almost done. But that is actually coming out to about £279,000 per year, which is technically a lot of money to be paying to live anywhere. And people are probably even more aghast that Andrew is going to be paid that kind of money to vacate a lease. So there's a lot going on, and we're obviously going to find out more as details and more things and allegations probably come out. And that right there speaks to the arrogance and the entitlement that make people want to take him down. Is it warranted? I believe that it is. I believe that there is something to the outcry, the public outcry that has been going on against this man. And there's been so many things swirling around, saying that actually there's more people in the United States that have been shown to have way more of an association and a just entanglement with Jeffrey Epstein. People who really aren't being questioned and being raked over the coals the way that Andrew is, and that Andrew's kind of like the scapegoat. Do I believe part of that too? Yeah, I do. I think that there are so many powerful elites here at play that do not want their name associated. That I believe personally, in my opinion, that there are cover-ups. There are a lot of unsavory things going on. I haven't seen too many people defending Andrew. I saw an interview that Dan Wootton had on his channel with Lady C. Lady Colin Campbell. And I just want to preface this by saying that I really do like Lady Colin Campbell. I think she makes a lot of compelling arguments on a lot of topics regarding the royal family. Watching that interview with her on Dan Wootton a few days back and kind of left me scratching my head a little bit, this idea of the age of consent. Apparently, where some of these incidences with Andrew and Virginia Giuffre occurred, 17 was the age of consent. So I do believe that that is why she is, furthering that position. But I have to say that there are some things that she is saying that I have to respectfully disagree with. I did notice that in that particular video of Dan Wootton's, that there were a lot of people really, really upset in the comments. They felt that Lady C was, entirely in the wrong in her defense of Andrew. You can respectfully disagree, but still continue to like and engage with someone, in my opinion. If it gets really bad, my advice would just be to disengage, Like sometimes you have to say what you believe and what you mean. I also want to say that these allegations against Prince Andrew are a very serious issue, and I recognize that that is why everyone was so angry in general. But in my opinion, Prince Andrew is 100% guilty. So she believes that Virginia Giuffre has lied, and also Andrew and Sarah have lied as well. But the few things that I wanted to touch upon was she seemed very big to drive the point that the press is treating Andrew very unfairly. And one of the ways that they're treating him unfairly is by associating his name with Epstein and calling Epstein a pedophile. According to her, it's just a more salacious way to get the people more up in arms and against Andrew. And, a pedophile is someone who is engaging with a child who is prepubescent. And she's saying that the people that Andrew and Jeffrey were involved with were not prepubescent, so that it's unfair to label them as pedophiles because the girls that they were involved with were post-pubescent. So there's a lot of different nuances that are being argued here.
Now the press has been extremely, extremely irresponsible is in labeling Jeffrey Epstein a pedophile. So that evokes images of children. And Virginia Giuffre was also desperate to try to present herself as an underage minor, which she never was. They are doing the same thing in terms of pedophilia and ephebophilia. These are both medical terms. Pedophilia means congress and interference with a prepubescent minor. Ephebophilia is post-pubescent. There is no doubt that Virginia Giuffre was post-pubescent.
There was a French investigation, and that's really important when we look at the different ways that law enforcement has approached this Epstein universe, because it's not just an Epstein universe. This international sex trafficking, back when these allegations first surfaced, this wasn't even hidden. These 3 12-year-olds were apparently well-known, discussed. This was talked about. Law enforcement knew all about it.
And again, if you take this whole age thing out of it, take away the age element. Sex trafficking is illegal no matter what age the victims are. You know, it's all illegal. It's all morally wrong. There was a bit in the interview with Dan where Lady C was talking about prostitution. She was saying that, you know, Virginia was a prostitute. She was reiterating that point several times, that she was a prostitute, okay? And she was saying that as far as she was concerned, it was a perfectly honorable profession as long as you are giving a service.
And I mean,
She wasn't trafficked. She chose, the woman was a prostitute, and you know, there's, as far as I'm concerned, it's a perfectly honorable profession as long as you are giving a service. And it's the second oldest profession in the world. It's very, as far as I'm concerned, it has honor as long as you don't do what Virginia Giuffre did, which was then spin around and use it to
years later,
victimize people who were not your victims. I'm sorry, I think the whole thing stinks to high heaven, and I think practically nobody comes out of this with any credit whatsoever.
It's not an honorable profession. Does the Bible say it's an honorable profession? It's the selling and commodifying of human bodies. How is that honorable? I guess she's trying to argue that because it was a monetary transaction and that Virginia was within the bounds of age of consent, that makes it okay and an honorable profession. And she was saying that it was one of the oldest professions, but that doesn't make it right. I was actually a little stunned. You know, obviously, I'm even the type of person where I take offense to people now in our modern culture not even calling sex in exchange for money prostitution. You can't even say that anymore. You have to say sex worker. It's okay to say it because that's what it is, okay? To Lady C's credit, at least she's calling a spade a spade. She knows what it is. It's prostitution. But if it's an honorable profession, then why is everyone so upset? Why has this news story about Andrew reached this global fever pitch that it has? Because we know in our hearts and souls that it's wrong. The behavior that he was engaged in, the trafficking of these girls, the prostitution, the abuse, all of it that's being alleged, it's wrong. That's why it's the story that it is. But I guess if you're going to argue that it's an honorable profession, then in that case, I guess it's not morally reprehensible and it's just something that he should have admitted to, because she's saying in her interview that he should just have come out and not lied about the fact that he was involved with these women, that he did pay, to play around with these girls.
He could have simply said, even if I was supposed to have slept with her, I committed no crime and there's no big deal about it. She was, by her own account, a 17-year-old prostitute, and that's all there is. He should have and could have and really should have done it.
And that if he just would have come out and said that, then he wouldn't be in the pickle that he is in now. But he's in the pickle that he's in now because it's atrocious behavior, because it's disgraceful behavior, and it disgraces the monarchy. That's why people are upset. It's just, It's crazy. And I really feel like arguments like these, they tend to, I don't want to say completely write off or make okay this type of behavior, but it's kind of like if you're constantly throwing out the, oh, well, she was well within the age of consent. You know what? There are a lot of things in our culture and in our society that are technically legal, but are still despicable, deplorable, and wicked. So that's kind of a very shaky ground to base an argument that just because something is legal, that it somehow gets a pass. That doesn't sit well with me. I do not buy that. So I'm not into saying that, because I disagree with Lady C on this Prince Andrew thing, that I'm never going to watch her again, that I don't like her again. I am not into that. I'm, disappointed that she came out and said that. I disagree with a lot of it, but, are there people out there that probably agree with her? Yeah, there probably are. I think that they're, thankfully, in my opinion, drowned out by more people that are really, really upset about what's going on with Andrew. Andrew was associating with someone who was a convicted sex trafficker and pedophile. It's not like Andrew is penitent about anything. And people are upset with this entitled, pig-headed buffoon because he is so defiant still. Because there's nothing coming from this man that signals that he feels any kind of shame or guilt or remorse or penitence for what he's done. It's disgraceful behavior, and it disgraces the monarchy. And there are calls for him to be investigated by the Metropolitan Police now. I mean, there has to be some sense of justice. Laws are put in place, again, not only to protect the innocent and the victims, but also to protect the criminal in a way. Like, it's good for their soul, it's good for their atonement, and it also acts as a deterrent as well. That doesn't mean that you still can't forgive somebody. Of course you can. But I think that's why so many people are angry. It's because not only is he not even asking for forgiveness from the public for all of the things that it is becoming more and more evident that he's been engaging in, he's remaining defiant, and he's still claiming his innocence despite mountains of evidence. And it only seems like it's going to get worse for this man. I know Andrew Lowry is already preparing, or probably has prepared, an updated version of his book to address all this fallout regarding Andrew just since the publication of this book about 2 or 3 months ago. And I do feel bad for the current working royals, the ones that are out there face forward to the public, doing the work day in and day out. King Charles and Queen Camilla and Prince William and Princess Catherine and Prince Edward and Duchess Sophie and the Princess Royal, Princess Anne. They don't deserve any of this. They don't deserve their family's good name marred through the mud because of the selfishly disgusting actions of Prince Andrew. But that's exactly what's happening. I don't think that even if his feet were put to the fire, would Andrew willingly admit anything. And that's really not a good way to be. And that just speaks to who he is. That just speaks to his makeup. And by all accounts, reading everything that I have, all these articles, all this stuff that's being talked about, the way that he was raised, the way that he was indulged, the way that Andrew was at a very, very young age sexualized, kind of warped his brain in a way. Those neural pathways to that kind of warped view of sexuality and the way that he viewed relationships and women, those neural pathways were set very, very early in his life. And I think preclude this disgraceful behavior that we're looking at now. It's really sad. And unfortunately, there's so many people who are saying, anti-monarchists, they're saying that the monarchy's days are numbered and Andrew is the first nail in the coffin. I hope that's not the case, because I personally believe that William is a good man, and Catherine, I believe they're good people, and that they really, really do want to affect change and good for the British royal family. Unfortunately, Andrew and his name are just toxic for the royal family and for the royal brand, and everything surrounding that man, it's tarnishing their good work. I'm a Roman Catholic, and King Charles this week is meeting with Pope Leo, and they're going to be praying together. This is unprecedented. You have two powerful figureheads coming together, united in Christian prayer, which is a beautiful thing. Something that hasn't happened for centuries since King Henry VIII broke away from the papacy, the seat of Peter in Rome. That hasn't happened in centuries, and it's completely overshadowed by the deviancy of this unrepentant, petulant prince, Andrew. I mean, if that isn't the devil at work, I don't know what is. I really don't know what is. So I will continue to pray for everyone involved here. And someone like Andrew, his soul needs a lot of prayer because he is so knee deep in his own false narrative that I don't know if there's any way out for this man. I really don't. But I'm in agreement with those that say that he needs to just leave and get in exile and just completely get out of Dodge. Let's see what he does. Let's see if more and more stuff starts getting released from the Epstein files, because again, depending on how bad it is, that might be what's going to happen next. I think that would be the best thing for him, because he can't expect to continue to live the royal life in the lap of luxury. And, he can't expect to do that. People don't want someone who has conducted themselves like the way he has, living in the lap of luxury, continuing to live at Royal Lodge, continuing to do all the things that he's doing without some type of repercussion. There has to be some sense of justice and fair play going on here. There's a woman now who supposedly killed herself by suicide earlier this year, who's speaking from beyond the grave in a book. And yeah, I'm sure she made a series of choices that got her where she was, but she also was put upon by a lot of evil, dark things that happened to her in her life. It's just really, really sad and dark and just kind of depressing, but he's just, to me, wicked, just plain wicked, desperately in need of prayer, on the wrong path for sure. So I want you guys to let me know what you think in the comments down below about all this stuff going on. Do you think that there's going to be more coming out? I believe that there will be. I think probably by this time next year, there's going to be even more disgusting allegations and details coming out about Andrew and his associations with Jeffrey Epstein. I do not think it looks good for this man. I think that he needs to go off into exile, him and his ex-wife, and they just need to be gone and let the adults in the family take over and continue the good work that they're supposed to be doing for the British public. I know this one was a deep one, but yeah, these are really tough topics. The only silver lining that I could see from all of that is it's getting people talking. It's getting people to realize how depraved and the depths that people will go to in their pursuit of all the wrong things. So that is my opinion. Like the video if you haven't, subscribe if you haven't, and you guys are so amazing. You're so supportive. The entire reason why I have a channel is because of you. So thank you so much for watching and hanging out with me today, and I will talk to you very, very soon.